Did you ever have one of those glorious days when your teacher would call in sick and you would get one of those much needed breaks from algebra or maybe American history? That's what I think about when I think about substitution. Sometimes I also think about the controversy that Taco Bell was involved in not long ago with the meat substitute that they were putting in all their products, which, by the way, I think the meat substitute is delicious. I love it. But other people may not like it. A lot of people were really upset that people were putting this fake meat in their tacos. Thinking about that one thing, have you ever noticed that a substitute is often used when something better can't be there? Whether it's the meat in your taco or the teacher in your classroom, people want the very best that they can get. And substitutes are often used to fill in for something else that's superior. But if the real thing can't be there, we'll temporarily settle for something else. I mean, think about it this way. Think about this Dr. Pepper, this Diet Dr. Pepper. You can take the Dr. Pepper and you can take away all the sugar from it and replace it with artificial sweetener. But at the end of the day, it's still not going to taste like the classic Dr. Pepper. It's still not going to taste as good, at least to me. But in order to lose weight or maybe to become more healthy or just out of taste, some people may switch to it and even enjoy it. But sometimes substitutes just aren't as good. If you're a substitute teacher and you're hearing this, please, please don't be mad at me, because I'll probably be doing some of that too. But substitutes, this is a word that we often put with something that's used as a replacement. But are you ready for this? Jesus was a substitute. Jesus was a substitute. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 21, it says this, "For our sake He made Him to be sin who knew no sin, so that in Him we might become the righteousness of God." Another version words it this way, "For God made Christ, who never sinned, to be the offering for our sin, so that we could be made right with God through Christ." Wow. Knowing that fact completely blows me away. It's amazing to me that Jesus, this portrait of everything that is beautiful, everything that is good, was sacrificed for me. And the only question that I can come up with, the big question that I have this afternoon is just, why? Why is one of the most annoying words to ever be used in the English language. Did you know that? It's the word that is most heard but probably disdained by teachers, by parents, and yes, even by youth ministers. But when you're thinking about today's hashtag, I can't help but think about this word. Why? Why on earth would Jesus become a substitute for me? I don't think I'm the only person in the world that's ever contemplated that. You know, I've been a Christian for a long time. I was baptized at a young age, but every now and then I'll get this overwhelming feeling of astonishment that God would make this astronomically huge sacrifice for me. That He would sacrifice someone that's so perfect for me. Why? Why did this happen? Well, you know, a couple of things come to my mind when I'm thinking about this. And the first is just the thought of imperfection. I mean, let me try and word how I'm thinking. I mean, look at this taco again. This taco is beautiful. It's amazing. I mean, it has meat, it has cheese, it has lettuce, sour cream, tomatoes. It has a Dorito shell. Did you hear me? It has a shell made entirely out of a Dorito. That's incredible. It's genius. It's almost like a work of art to me. You know, but as wonderful as this taco may seem to me, as wonderful as it may seem to you, a lot of people have a huge problem with the meat inside of it. Why? Well, because it's not 100% pure ground beef. Out of curiosity, I just went on Taco Bell's website and looked at the ingredients inside of the meat that's inside of it. And you know, there were things like soybeans and wheat, and there was this long list of ingredients that went into the seasoning, things like flavors and colors, things that didn't really sound very natural. And people, because of that, have become very dissatisfied. You know, people, whether it's the food that they're eating or the clothes that they're wearing or the technology that they're using, people want the very best that they can get their hands on. And sometimes certain things just won't cut it. If you take a close look at the Old Testament, you can see this very complex process that people would have to go through in order to make an atonement for their sins, in order to be forgiven for them. In fact, in Leviticus chapter 4, God gives Moses this really long, extensive list of instructions that people were to go through in order to gain this forgiveness. Let me read just a portion of that for you. Starting in verse 3 of chapter 4 of Leviticus, it says this: "If the anointed priest sins, bringing guilt on the people, he must bring to the Lord a young bull without defect as a sin offering for the sin he has committed. He is to present the bull at the entrance to the tent of meeting before the Lord. He is to lay his hand on his head and slaughter it there before the Lord. Then the anointed priest shall take some of the bull's blood and carry it into the tent of meeting." On down in verse 8 it says this: "He shall remove all the fat from the bull of the sin offering, all the fat that's connected to the internal organs, both kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. Just as the fat is removed from the ox sacrificed as a fellowship offering, then the priest shall burn them on the altar of burnt offering. But the hide of the bull, and all its flesh, as well as the head and legs, the internal organs and the intestines, that is, all the rest of the bull, he must take outside the camp to a place ceremonially clean, where the ashes are thrown, and burn it there in a wood fire on the ash heap." Okay, first of all, gross. That is disgusting. That's why I don't hunt, because I can't clean anything, okay? That's just disgusting to me. But second of all, can you imagine having to go through all of that every single time you sin? Can you imagine having to go through all of these different steps in order to make a sacrifice? But on top of that, not only did these people have to go through these long rituals, but God wanted them to present the cleanest animals possible. God wanted these animals to be without defect. He wanted them to be pure. But you know what? At the end of the day, it just wouldn't cut it. It just wouldn't cut it. It took one time, though. One sacrifice. One perfect sacrifice of the perfect blood of Jesus Christ in order to allow us to finally make things right with God. Here's the question again, though. Why did this happen? Why did Jesus become our substitute? Well, it's because of love. It's all because of this perfect plan, this perfect love that God has for us, that Jesus was made a substitute for you, and He was made a substitute for me. Romans 5 and verse 8, it says, "God demonstrates His own love for us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us." Did you hear that? While we were yet sinners, while we were still sinners, while we were still imperfect, while we were broken, while we were still trying to fill this void in our lives with things that in the end just wouldn't cut it, Christ died for you and for me. Jesus, this portrait of perfection, this portrait of everything that is wonderful and good, this portrait of perfect love, stood in our place and became a substitute for you and for me out of nothing but love.